Morning, Emily.
Hi,
How are ya?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, Sarah.
Hey Mandy, how are ya?
I'm good. We have all of our stars on. I'm so excited. Emily, I invited someone on who he's an agent from another brokerage, but he does Wisconsin and Illinois. So I told him to come on and check you out and
Yes,
see what you have to say. And
good.
yeah, he had some things today, so he might not be able to make it, but I said I'd send him the recording and introduce you to if I can.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
What up, ladies?
Hey, Charlie.
The host with the most.
Dude, we're just rocking out today. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I just gotta get one.
Hey, Peter.
What's up?
I just saw your daughter. I'm in the Lake Country office.
Oh, my deepest condolences.
I love it out here.
It's really a cool office, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I reached out to Martha. Julia is just over the top. She is so good at that Dofi role. It's just great.
Oh, that's awesome. Got more people joining, Charlie. I don't know why there's a waiting room. So,
No problemo. We'll give it like 2 more minutes, then we'll get rocking.
sounds good.
Oberbrunner, where are you running over around Milwaukee today?
I'm all over the place today. I gotta drop some of the elderly ladies off at St. Luke's. They have
You
some
mean like
medical
over 60?
appointments. Yeah, on 27th, I think it is. And then I gotta do the grocery shopping while they're at their appointments. So I pick and save and Sendix.
Oh, that's so nice.
That is what we call full service.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so we're just going to get rocking and rolling. All right, so guys, here is the format for today. I am super pumped to bring you 2 incredible, phenomenal women. One is Emily Phair. Emily is an agent. She lives currently right now down in Chicago. Her team in the last 12 months has done 50 million. On an incredible growth trajectory. I mean, they essentially in the last 3 years went from 15 million to 35 million to 45 million to 50 million. And I'm putting it out in the universe to hold her accountable to get there this year. But they have Emily is also seeing somebody in around the Milwaukee area. And so she said, well, wow, since I'm in and around Milwaukee and I send a ton of referrals to Milwaukee, her team is looking to expand into the Milwaukee market. And so we're going to kind of take a deep dive into how they've taken their business and really exploded over the last 3 years. And then the other person we're going to have a conversation with is the incredible Sarah Oberbrunner, who many of you know. But last year, she was our #1 individual agent in the North Shore office, managed something like 75 plus transactions for right around, whoa, am I right on this? Like 17 million, Sarah?
Yeah, it was roughly around there.
Yeah, who's counting? But so we're gonna tap into what makes these guys successful in different ways, right? Like Emily's leading a team of people. Sarah's really running running by herself. And she's also taking I would say, a different perspective on her business as she heads into 2020. So we're going to kind of take a deep dive into that. And also the cool part about this format is if you have questions, feel free to either throw them in the chat or feel free to speak up, and I'll kind of lead the facilitation of the discussion. Sound good with the group? Awesome. All right, so let's just jump into it real quick. Emily, give us like your vitals. Who are you?
Sure.
How long have you been in the business? Like what you're about, all that.
Okay. So hi, I'm Emily, and I cannot wait until the world opens up so that I can meet you guys. I've been to the KW North Shore office a couple of times. My intention was to make a big impact there in the spring, and of course that didn't happen. So I am in Chicago. I've been in real estate in Chicago since 2009. So I got in when the market was terrible, but being young and dumb was an advantage because I didn't know any better. So I thought it was. So I made my way through the first market, and then we recovered in Chicago in about 2013, and since then have been on a really good path. I started my team in 2017. I have a business partner, Kevin Hinton. He's amazing, and you guys will see his face around at some point as well. So yeah, I've got a team of 7 in Chicago, and we're looking to basically replicate what we've done in Chicago in the Milwaukee office. And so I'd love to say that coming to Milwaukee is because of the business opportunity, but really it's because I fell in love. So everything's always about a boy, but he's a really cool boy. And so I thought, I'm always about business opportunities anyway. And so this was just a really great chance to sort of take my personal and professional lives and put them together. So I'm currently in Lincoln Park, and in a few hours I will be on the east side in Milwaukee, and I'm sort of toggling between both, but 2 of the greatest cities in the world. So I'm happy to be doing it. So those are my vitals.
Cool. All right, Sarah Oberbrunner, share us your story.
Yeah, so I got into real estate full-time about 6 years ago. Prior to that, I was a manager at Victoria's Secret for 16 years. During my time there, I gained a lot of skills and just abilities around work ethic and knowing how to service the client. And that company kind of started to transition like the last 5 years I was there, and I knew I wanted to get out, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I talked to my dad. He got me in contact with a friend of his, and then I started April 1st, 2014, and it was the best decision that I made.
And did you start off right away doing dual career, or did you jump right in at real estate right away?
He would not hire you unless you were willing to do it full time. So I had to quit my job. So I kind of planned that transition out like 6 months prior, and I had to start full time.
Yeah, you just took the leap of faith.
Took the leap of faith.
And in your first year, just for perspective for some people, what was your income in your first year?
Yeah, my first year, I started April 1st. I didn't really know anything that year. So I did 24 transactions from April to December. And then I think the year after it was 50. And then it just kind of started to grow from there.
Holy shit. Okay, so this is like a perfect intro into my first question. And I sent these guys some questions in advance to kind of think through. But Sarah, let's just kind of start with you because this is where we were. Just for the people on the call, my focus on my questions today are going to focus around 3 main areas. It's going to be leads, listings, and leverage. And if that sounds very familiar to you, it should, because it's right out of the MREA as to like what are the business building foundations of this business, right? So let's go right into leads. Sarah, talk a little bit. April 1 to December, you did 24 deals your first year. Mm-hmm. And I know you've kind of had an evolution of where your leads have come from, but like just talk about in the beginning, like how you built your business, where did those 24 pieces of business come from?
So in the beginning, the company that I worked for, they had a internet lead model. So all I did was internet leads, and they do convert, but they're very costly. They're very time consuming. So I would spend about 3 to 3.5 hours a day prospecting those internet leads, and then about 45 minutes to an hour a day role playing and script practicing. And then I would start my day after those 4 hours.
Yeah. And if you think of it like this, would you say that the key X factor in the conversion rate on those, knowing that the conversion rate on internet leads is so low, the X factor in what you were able to deliver was really your script practice and role play to drive conversion?
Yeah, absolutely. I had to get really good on the phone, and I didn't have any experience, but I knew how to talk to people on the phone and make them feel comfortable. So that's what I basically did, was translate, and I would like script practice and role play every single day and just get on the call and make the calls and build that connection. And I was at about a 10 to 13% for internet lead conversion. Usually a good percentage is at 3. So they are tougher to convert, but they did turn over, and I needed to start that way because I didn't have a big sphere of influence. I didn't have any past clients. So I knew it was going to be a lot of hustle in the beginning to get some deals underneath my belt. But I knew after the 5 years that I wanted to switch that to referral and basically past client and sphere for my business.
Cool. All right. So Emily, let's jump over to you. You jumped in right at like 08, 09, which was the perfect time to jump into this business, right? Like, where did you find your initial business? Like, how did you obviously found it somewhere and not long,
Right.
you found it somewhere to make you stick with it. So what did that look like?
Right. So initially, I did the internet lead thing as well. So, but not through my brokerage. I did it through Zillow, and Realtor.com at the time was my best source, and a couple of other like sort of random sources for internet leads. And then I just got really good at being scrappy as hell. I mean, that's, I think, my superpower. I'm not quite so scrappy anymore because I don't have to be, but that was what I did in the first few years. But I think now we still do a lot of internet leads on our team. Like we invest tens of thousands a year in Zillow, actually, for hundreds of thousands of ROI. But one of the best ways to get leads and to build my business was doing open houses. So I did so many open houses. Oh my God, so many. And now our team is required to do 6 open houses a month because that's where you meet buyers and sellers. It's so easy if you just show up and act smart and don't be weird and talk to people, and it's so easy. So between those two, that's how I like built my business. Now, pretty much everything that comes to me is referral, I would say. A lot of agent referrals, which has been kind of cool and interesting. But yeah, I started with internet. I was willing to make a pretty decent financial investment in internet leads and a pretty decent investment in my time with open house leads. But that's how I built it in the first, I don't know, I'm like you, Sarah, in the first 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. And so now let's talk about where you are today, right? So that you worked that like a dog, and you were very intentional around what that looked like.
Yeah.
Talk about where you saw the inflection point where your business, correct me if I'm wrong, really came more between open houses and repeat and referral, correct?
Yeah. Well, I think what happened was after that, like maybe 5-year cycle in Chicago for sure, it's probably similar in Milwaukee and certainly in the Milwaukee proper, but like that sales cycle is like 5 years, right? Because we were working in such a condo market. So really where I started to get the referrals was when people started to sell or started to upgrade, right? So it took, a few years to get clients, and then all of a sudden they're trying to sell. So I was getting listings for the first time and then getting the resale. So that's when it's really started to grow and turn into more of a referral business. And I am one of the things most proud of in our business, and mine specifically, is like, I don't really have a lot of, if we're being totally honest, I don't have a lot of friends or family. I have a huge family in Wisconsin, but I don't have anybody here in Chicago. So I just had to find anybody that would talk to me. And so I built it all from basically cold leads is what I did. And the resale is when it became referral based.
And yeah. And so Sarah, how about you? Like when you've made a big transition too of becoming a lot more repeat referral, which ultimately hits your bottom line a lot bigger, right? Mm-hmm. Where do you say that inflection point happened for you, like as it relates to dealing with a lot of what would be cold leads that now you're pretty much working only in a warm business?
Yeah, I would say same as Emily. I kind of saw that transition happen at that 4-year mark, and it was because then all those people that I had sold to started reselling. They needed to upgrade. But like her, I was really hustling. Like in the beginning, I would have like a portable little basket in my car of like buyer folder and presentations and things like that. So even when I was out doing a showing, somebody would drive by and take a look at the property I was showing, and I would just get leads that way by just being there and showing up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so let me ask you this too, Emily, because you guys,
Yeah.
it sounds like you guys started your businesses very similar, which I actually did not know.
Yeah.
And Sarah being very good at like the script practice and role play on the phone, were you just dialing for dollars in the beginning of just whoever would take your phone call?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I still will if I have to. I have a 3-line dialer that I would, I mean, my life is a little bit more cushy than it used to be. So I have people on my team who do that, but I do have a 3-line dialer. And up until about 2 years ago, I was using it pretty consistently. It's starting with cold leads on the buy side, but now like I won't work cold leads on the buy side, but on the sell side, I totally will. Yeah, I do circle prospecting. Circle prospecting is my favorite. I'm good at that. I love it. It's easy. It's like, I mean, it just,
So,
it's just
so for someone who doesn't know what that is, right?
Mhm.
What's circle prospecting?
Yeah, so I have a program that will, it's called Mojo for anybody, and you can DM me offline. But it's a 3-line dialer that will call like around a property address. So if you've got 123 Main Street, you can draw like a half-mile radius, and it'll pull all the phone numbers that are of public record, and it'll dial 3 at a time. Whoever answers first, you just say, hey, it's Emily with KW. Have you thought about selling? And when you say, have you thought about selling? Everybody says, well, yeah, I've thought about it. And then boom, you just start a conversation. It's so easy. Now, it's not fun. It's not fun, and it, you know, requires a lot of time and a lot of discipline. But if you're an agent who wants to get listings and you're willing to put in the time, you will get listings like this week, 100%.
Yeah. And what I do know about both of you, especially when you think about like the beginnings of your career, is like you weren't afraid to try things. Am I right?
Yep.
Am I right or wrong on that, Sarah? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
I just didn't want to move back home by my parents. That was because I had no money coming in. So I was like, I would sit at that desk and just be on the phone for like 8 hours a day. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I did.
yeah, and it's so funny because in the beginning, so many agents are so scared. They're deathly afraid of getting no on the phone.
Mhm.
And, you know, I get the question all the time, what makes a good agent successful? I'm like, they don't care how many no's they get because they're like, well, the next phone call could be a yes.
Yep.
Right. And if you have that relationship with, whether it be your phone or an open house or whatever, like, and you're just willing to be like, all right, I don't care if people tell me to, go pound sand, then, it shows up in the hustle and grit that like you guys have built your businesses so fast. Right. Because I know agents, to be quite frankly, agents who've been in the business for 20 years and they've never gone above 5 million. And they're like, well, I can't get above a ceiling.
Yeah.
So, all right, now we kind of framed our mindset around that, the phone, mojo dialing, script practice and role play. Now talk about like, Sarah, we'll start with you. And I've heard you kind of talk about this before. Talk about how you stay in touch with your database or your relationship with your database now, where like a lot of your business really is, Sarah, come list me. Sarah, I want to go look at this house. Like you're getting the phone call instead of you making the phone call.
Yeah, and I would say in the beginning, the hardest area for me to work was my sphere and my family. Like they still wouldn't list with me, even after I was in the business like a year or two. So I needed to get some sales and like experience underneath my belt. So finally, after year 4, now I get like friends and family who are calling to use me after that. But that took some time as well to build up. As far as like staying connected with clients, I do, for like my past clients, I do 4 mailers a year. And you kind of have to know your clientele. So my clientele likes like the sports magnets that you get, those cheesy magnets that you see in people's fridge, like that's my clientele. So they get a Packer one, a Brewer one. I send them a Thanksgiving postcard every year. They get a birthday card from me. And then after their first year of buying, they get like a 1-year home anniversary. And then I try to touch at least my top 100 past clients, 1 additional touch per year for them. So that's going to vary. When I'm first starting to work with a client, I almost act like I'm dating that client. So I try to learn as much information about them. So I get down like occupation, just restaurants they like, things they like to do. So for like my single moms, I always mail them a card on Mother's Day. my single dads will get a card on Father's Day. Like that's all easy stuff where I never talk about business, but it's more just adding value and giving. And then they call me because I'm just always staying in touch. So it's never awkward for me to connect with the clients because I'm doing it out of the way that I like speak. And that would be adding value.
That's such a good analogy to talk about, like when you initially meet someone, it's like you're dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you use that analogy to then how you talk about how you lead generate, it never feels like you're actually lead generating because it actually comes off as genuine, right?
Yeah, it's something that I like I always like to do it. I don't get annoyed like writing out these cards or doing things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would get annoyed calling and asking for referrals. That wouldn't feel good to me. That would feel like too much of a sales pitch for me. But that again is how, like what is comfortable for me.
Yeah. And when people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when people see you, they feel as if they're always in constant contact with you, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, even like during all this like COVID stuff that's going on, I pick 5 clients a week where I just send a card to, and it just says, thinking about you this week. Hope you're staying safe and healthy. And that's it.
Yeah.
So I'm going through my database and just picking like 5, random people. And then I'll get a text back, thanks so much for reaching out. We're staying healthy. But again, it's easy ways to connect.
Yeah, totally. And let me just ask you, off the top of your head, round numbers, like what's your total database look like for your book of business?
My database would be more like just past clients. So I would say I have probably about 300 past clients.
Yeah. And so the reason I asked that question is some people get overwhelmed thinking, oh, I have to have 2,000, people in my database or 5,000 people in my database. Sarah, realistically, and this is a guess here, Sarah probably has 300 people in her database, and she's really probably effectively communicating with 50 to 100 a year, right?
Yeah, my top 100 I usually do.
Yeah. So your top 100, and it turned out to be like 17 million in business. Like that, it's not an overwhelming number of people that you really have to maintain a relationship with. Yeah. All right, Emily, how about you?
Okay, so I'm going to plug Phil Byers for next Wednesday because he is my friend and mentor, but he is my inspiration for a pretty strict and strategic 33 touch. And I know that's what he's going to be teaching all of us next week. And if you haven't seen it, see it, because I have watched that over and over and over, and I'll probably be on the call next week as well. And I believe in it. So our team runs 33 touch, which, and I think we're calling it 36 now, whatever. But basically that includes monthly emails, mailers, quarterly phone calls, etc. So we're just doing the basics. I mean, there's nothing particularly interesting about me and my team, except that we just do the basics and we do them all the time consistently. Like consistency is what we're all about. But now I've been doing that for years and years and years to a point where I don't really have to do much anymore. It really is come list me, and I don't really even have to make my quarterly phone calls. In fact, I don't tell anyone on my team I said that, but it's true. Because I just am kind of everywhere. Because I have admin that run our 33 touch and their mailings are going out and my Facebook posts are coming from, it looks like it's coming from me, but it's not. My Instagram, I'm everywhere. So anybody that I'm connected with is seeing that I'm in real estate. So I don't do as good of a job as you, Sarah, in terms of like those personal touches, and I should. I'm not a very, well, I could be anything, but I don't enjoy like the birthday cards and the Mother's Day and all of that. That to me is a little bit tedious, so I just don't do it. And instead, I just sort of blast my branding everywhere. And I'm just kind of everywhere, but nowhere, I'm not one-on-one based necessarily with my clients.
Yeah, but I think for many of the people who I know who are on this call, I think what you have to understand about Emily's business is she worked arduously on the front end to build the system so that now, like, she says she doesn't really do a whole lot of that because all of it's been done, right? Like, she did all the work up front.
Yeah, it's so hard to like remember what I did because right now I don't, right now I have the leverage, which I know we're going to talk about, but like, I was so much scrappier and more diligent with my lead gen and with my systems in terms of 33 touch and all of that. And now it's all being kind of run for me, but you're right, Charlie. It was like, I had to do it all on the front end for the relief on the back end. So if you're a newer agent or building your business, like the harder you work now, the more time you'll have off in ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, think of it like this, right? Emily built the engine, and that took a ton of time and effort and tinkering on the front end. But now the engine is just running on cruise control in the background, where it's just come with me. Oh my gosh, Emily, I feel like I see you everywhere.
Yeah.
But because she spent the time on the front end, here, I'll use a quote that my coach hits me over the head with all the time, is leverage is always more work before it's less, right? Yeah. So people automatically assume, oh, I set up an email campaign, I set up this, I hired an assistant, great, I'm going to push all this stuff off. But they don't do the work on the front end to make it to the point where Emily is now. Yeah. And so they just are people are always looking for the easy button. And the easy button is never to be found. It's no such thing. Staples is a lie. So put the work on the front end and you'll be able to get to a point where Emily is now on the back end. And I would say from a commentary standpoint, Emily's business is very systematized and routine and structured. And Sarah's business, what actually fills her up, and I could be wrong, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, personally and professionally, is the personal, genuine, authentic touch that she likes to add to her business. But that's also like what fulfills her personally too, right?
Correct.
And that's, neither one is right or wrong. It's just what works for both of you because you're different people and you run your businesses different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Charlie, I'll add that, like, my advice is be like Sarah until you earn the right to take a step back.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So that people feel that it's genuine and authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Peter brought up a good point in the chat section. He says he's looking for the effective button, right? Think about it like, and I'm going to ask Emily and Sarah this question, right? Kind of off the cuff, is how do you define if you're effectively touching your database, right? And what I mean by that is I see a lot of people just throwing stuff out there to see what sticks, but how do you know if it's effective for you?
I mean, my clients are always reaching out, I guess I would say. Like, I'm always in contact with them. So that would be like, I'm getting invited to like birthday parties, graduation parties. Like, we're just friends now. So I would say, like, that's how I know I've built it effectively. And when I'm getting referrals, right now I probably get like 2 to 3 referrals a week. However, not all of them are quality, but they're coming from a lot of different clients, not just a few where that's how it used to be.
Yeah. How about you, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a numbers person, so I'm going to measure my effectiveness by taking my database and dividing it by 10. And if that's how many deals I have per year, then I know I've been effectively touching them. So our database, we'll see how many we end up with, but our database is about 1,500 people, and we're going to have about 150 deals this year. And that's kind of the way that I think about it. I know for sure that I have 517 people in my database. And so per the rules of the MREA 33 Touch, I will have 50 deals personally to contribute to our overall goal. So, I mean, I don't know how it gets more measurable than that, but that's what we go with. So we build our database not to say that we have a big database. We build our database so that we can project what our income is going to be for next year, because it will absolutely come down to dividing it by 10, and that's how many we'll have. So we can project budgets and everything because of that. That's how I do it.
Yeah, and if you think about effectiveness too, right, Peter, most people don't do a good enough job to be reflective on where their business came from and their sources of business, right? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I see it where an agent's like, oh my gosh, my hair was on fire this year. I did 24 deals. I don't know where it came from, this, that, and the other. I say, well, what are your sources? And they feel like they're doing 10 different things from a lead generation standpoint. And then they find out their 2 sources were friends and family and open houses. And I said, well, the other 8 don't matter. Be more effective at open houses and your friends and family, and you'll be fine. That's effectiveness, right? But understanding your lead sources is probably the most important starting place to build an effective plan, so you know how to impact those sources. That makes sense?
Yeah, I've got a good friends and family database, but I think Sarah mentioned it. I know a lot of them are going, well, let's see how long you last at this. Mm-hmm. Or when I reach out, oh yeah, great. You're in real estate. You're one of 15 people I know. So I'm looking for a way to get more effective at reaching out in the places, in the areas where I want to do business. And I like that circle prospecting. I'm going to look at that. I'm considering some direct mail to neighborhoods that I'm thinking of. And Charlie and I have talked about this. I know I'm doing some of the right things, but I think I'm operating at about 25%. My database is about almost 1,000, but when you take out out-of-town people, other realtors, it's probably about 700. And I think they're getting sick of hearing from me. So I'm looking for the effective way to build new business. And I have automated some things. I've set up some 8x8, some 33 touch, but you know, I'm kind of casting around. I'm feeling a little stuck, and I'm trying to break through to that next level and know, you know, really be purposeful about what I do next.
So you gave me a good leading question for these guys, right? Is Sarah, Emily, whoever wants to take the lead on this, is as you're growing your business and you're looking ahead at, let's just say the next 6 to 12 months, is where do you find organic areas for growth, right? And Emily, that's probably an easier answer for you to just say, oh, Milwaukee's going to be organic. But like, if you think about it, just your Chicago business, right? Like, how are you going to find new business that isn't someone who's already bought 3 homes with you?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually am not going to say Milwaukee, although that's part of it. But I'm thinking way bigger than Milwaukee, right? So Milwaukee is just an awesome business opportunity and a catalyst to get me to Milwaukee. But the bigger, like, overarching theme is that I believe in building out a business in which you have lots of different revenue streams and hedging. So when one market goes haywire, like Chicago was having a really tough spring, Milwaukee was thriving. Now we're sort of equal. But I believe in like putting your fingers in a lot of things so that you'll get success in one area while other areas might not. So different revenue streams. So, because I don't care if I'm selling a lot of houses, I care if my bank account is getting bigger. So profit share, hiring team agents that have different skill sets. So we've got rentals that we've done 56 rentals this year, which is nuts. We have someone on our team who's really good with multi-units. We call them multi-units. You guys call them duplexes. Adding a different market. So Milwaukee. My business partner is investing in a market center in KW1 here in Chicago. So it's not about selling condos. For me, it used to be like, oh, I'll sell condos all day long. I'm so good at it. 2-bed, 2-bath, Lincoln Park, 425 all day long. I got it. But there's not enough of them for me to have a huge business. So I have to look at how else I can build businesses within my business so that there's revenue coming from every area of my businesses. Also, starting a coaching practice is something I'm looking at. So I would say if you're not finding success if you're capped on success in one specific area, where else can you grow your business? And you just got to get creative. But I'd hedge. I would blow it up. Just add any kind of revenue stream you can think of. And there's so many. I mean, I just gave like 5 or 6, but there's so many more, right? Staging businesses and title companies and et cetera, et cetera. So. I can't hear you, Charlie.
Oh,
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, sorry. So Sarah, how about you? Like, from an organic standpoint, where are you looking at from a growth perspective? Or even, I think that probably something a little bit smaller scale is to think about from a database. Like, how are you diversifying your database to find new areas of business?
I'm just really working like past client and referral right now because I like the type of a lifestyle that brings me, where I'm not rushing and chasing and hustling so much. So that's what I'm going after. And, you know, Peter, I know being a new agent, sometimes you don't have the income coming in to be able to spend money on some of these additional things, but you're already starting with, you just graduated from the mentor program recently with your deals. So I would just kind of start working those 5 deals that you finished and get some good systems in place for follow-up and your past clients. And those clients will be loyal to you. You know, if you treat them well and they had a great experience, they're going to come back.
Totally. And what I would say too, for everybody on the call is whether you're Peter or whether you're Katie Neville or whoever you may be, or Paula, right? Is if you want to diversify for organic growth, look at who your database is and where those people fall within your life. And then if you notice that your database is family and friends heavy, great. I need to go find professional people to add to my database. It's really heavy on open houses. Great. I need to actually go add my family and friends. You need to look at what makes up or consists of your database in order to create diversification there to create organic growth. Hopefully that makes sense for the group. So
maybe if I could, I don't think I'm different. I think probably a lot of people are thinking the same way I do. I mean, it's going to be 8 deals within a month. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm gaining traction. I'm not considering myself successful, but I'm gaining traction. I think everybody here is. But when I hear these numbers, my first thought is, God, I suck. What do I got to do? So I've got to get to a next level. And I can't, one of the things about being a new agent with KW is there's so many good things. There's so many people getting success that are just killing it now that weren't doing anything 5 years ago, but I can't do everything that comes at me. So I'm just trying to learn from you what was, if there's that one thing, whether it be database or circle prospecting or open houses, just what worked for you in your experience. I'm going to mute myself now.
Yeah, well, I know Emily spoke about it before, and I spoke about this on calls before, but I think it's really honing in on what your superpower is. So mine is the ability to genuinely connect with others and build rapport where they feel valued, loved, and appreciated. So that carries on professionally and personally. So it's hard to not want to do what every other agent does in the business. But I think once you hone in on what your superpower is, you'll be able to elevate your business more, because in that area, you can always get better. And it's something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. Emily, any commentary on that?
Sarah, that was so good, because I think what I see so often with newer agents is this want to copy somebody else's business because they're seeing success. Like, I have mentors who I've tried to copy and it just doesn't work. It's not authentic. Like, I'm never going to be like you, Sarah. Like, I do not have an ability to genuinely connect with people. I just don't. I don't really care about people. Like, I care about other things. And so, like, I can't copy your business and you can't copy mine because it's just not going to work. So we learn from one another, but you really have to figure out what is authentically you and what is going to be successful for you, and not try to copy it. I see it so often. I mean, people, like, we've got all these like celebrities, these like celebrities within Keller Williams that we're all trying to like copy. And I see it and it's just like, no, just take their insights, but don't try to be them, because you never will. And then it's that feeling of like, oh, dang, I'm not doing enough, or, oh, I'll never be like this person. And it's that icky feeling of just trying to replicate what you'll never be able to replicate. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents on authenticity.
Yeah, and I'll kind of wrap it up here to shift into listings. But one thing I would tell anybody in this group is you have to be able to effectively tell your story to stack successes. And what I mean by that is, let's just use Peter as an example because he's spoken up today. Peter will have closed 8 deals by the end of the month. And he said that he has some trouble with family and friends who trust him to want to sell his home. But the power of social media, or the power of a mailer, or the power of telling the story of the deals that you've done, they don't know whether it's 8 deals or 80 deals, right? And so the question I have for agents all the time is, are you telling your success story, or are you allowing others to tell it for you, right? And what does that look like, and how are you communicating that is what ultimately the perception of your business will be.
Yeah, Charlie, can I add, because I have such a great example. So Peter, right before I got on this call, I was on a Zoom with some buyers in the Milwaukee area, and full disclosure, I don't even know. It was like, I don't even know. They said they live in Walker's Point. I'm like, okay, sure. I have no idea where that is. And so, because I'm a Chicagoan and I'm just learning Milwaukee, but I was on the call with them as though I have sold 30 properties in Walker's Point. I was like nodding and smiling and doing my thing. And like underneath the table, I was like, okay, Google Maps. Cool. So it's like, I'm a new agent too, and just in a new market, right? And so I am telling them stories, to Charlie's point, success stories of past clients. They don't know that I've literally never sold a property in Wisconsin. They don't know, they don't care. I just pretend that that's what I do. And I'll figure it out.
All right, now I'm going to shift the conversation here a little bit, which I love because I actually don't. First of all, thank you, ladies, for talking about leads, because ultimately without leads, you can't figure out what to do with the rest of the business. And I actually don't think as agents, we talk enough about how to find leads or where they come from or how to approach leads.
Yeah.
It's really easy to say, hey, what's your listing presentation look like? What's a buyer consultation look like? But without the leads, those things don't matter, right? So thank you for kind of sharing some insights there. So now let's just jump into listings, right? Because listings, every listing, as I say, has babies. And if you have babies, you should get either another listing or another buyer from it. So just kind of general discussion as it relates to your approach with listings and how you kind of frame your mindset around that. And Sarah, I'll kind of start with you.
Yeah, with listings, I spend a lot of time on my markets. So if you price it right, it's going to sell. And the markets is where I always over prepare. So I do mine old school. I print out my markets. Some people might hate that, but for me, technology isn't always my best friend. So printing them out is what works best for me. I always do pre-listing calls where I ask questions, and some of the questions I ask would be, what are you hoping to sell it for? Because then I know where the client's mind is at and I know how to kind of structure my market. If they worked with another agent, you know, I always ask, what did you like most about working that agent? And if we do work together, when we do work together, what can I do to create a better experience for you? I don't give price ranges when I go to sell a home. I give a set price, and I almost let the client determine the price when I go to the market, but they always end up on my price because my market has told the story. So at the end of the presentation, I always say, so what are your thoughts on pricing? And they always come up with pretty much the same number that I had in my head, but I want them to be in agreement with the pricing.
And so would you say, because of, I think the pre-listing call is so vital too, because it allows you to adjust your approach based on the information you gather from that.
Well, for me too, in the beginning, I could not work with like a D personality on listings because they would come with all these objections and it would just throw me off. So the whole presentation, I was focused on selling myself instead of the house. So by asking the questions in advance, I can prepare for the objections. So I'm confident on the appointment, and then that doesn't like shake me anymore.
Yeah, you're going into the test with the answers.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Super cool. All right, Emily, how about you?
Okay, so listings are interesting right now. I think we've got like, I think 18 listings on the market right now, and we're at about 40 for the year. So I've got a lot of experience with the pre-listing, the going on market, and then getting it under contract. Challenge right now is selling houses too fast, so that we don't get the leads that we want on the buy side. So we have to look at our listings in a different way and say, okay, if we can't get buyer leads, like we list all of our properties on Wednesdays. We're often not getting through the Sunday open house. And you guys, I'm sure, are facing the same thing in terms of just the market moving so quickly. So what we used to use as a lead opportunity has become sort of a challenge. So now it's like, okay, I need to get leads from these listings because that's how we grow our business, and one of the main reasons. And so the best way is to deliver the best quality service we possibly can. So we don't need to get cold leads from an open house. We need to get leads from the seller, is what we have to do right now, or from the neighbor, or from the guy across the street, whatever. So that's the main focus right now. So we have a really, really sophisticated pre-listing process. Our seller homework is amazing. Our listing day is exciting. And our negotiation skills are pretty much on point. And of course, no one's mad when you sell it for full price in one day, right? That's like going to our advantage right now. But that's how we have to look at our listings, because if we just only are looking at open houses and we don't have any, and we haven't had any all through COVID, we thought we were gonna have all these open house opportunities, leads, and then we're not, because everything's selling. It's like, oh, so we just have to be like A game with service. That's our whole mission in 2020 is service, service, service. To get us those referrals. So that's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah, jump into like the foundation of that service though starts with the pre-listing process, right?
Yeah. So I'm fortunate now to have the leverage in my business to have a listing manager, right? So what she does is she manages, basically we're project managers. That's all I am. I always tell a seller, I'm going to project manage you into your listing date. and then I'm going to go negotiate your deal. But she has a system. So we do literally like a listing intake, Google Doc, submit all the information. She sends paperwork. She sends seller homework. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about with seller homework, message me and I'll send you, but it's a list of like 30 questions that we ask every single seller. And we ask them whether they've told us or not. So if they've told me in the listing appointment, sorry, you have to tell me again, so that it's all in writing. And then we have the photo scheduled and all of that. And it's all just very methodical and it's all on the calendar and it's all managed and organized so that there's no questions. And by the time we get on the market, it's been, the seller is like totally prepared. And the other thing, I mentioned this, but like I feel very strongly about this. We only list our properties on Wednesdays. And that is, we tell them it's because of them, but that's not true. It's because of us. So after they go on the market, we have what's called 3 weeks of love. And so basically we have an email or an activity that happens on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and it's the same for every single listing. So the first Monday on the market, you get this email. This first Tuesday, you get that email. So it's like everything is so organized and so process oriented that my admin just has to shoot off like these like canned emails. All of those, you guys, I can give you copies too. But it's become so systematized that I don't need to think about anything. And my admin doesn't need to think. And I don't like to think. I like to just take vacation is what I really like to do. And so the more I can systematize it, the more vacation I can have. That's my whole, but you know, it took months to systematize it. Now it's down.
Yeah, it's a factory, right?
Totally.
And everybody plays a role in the factory. And when everybody plays their role with high efficiency, the ultimate outcome of it is a high service level that the seller really enjoys the process and believes that they got a fair and equitable return on their investment.
Totally. And they don't really talk to me all that much. I go in there for the listing appointment, which is often on Zoom or a call, or I just go show up at their property with a lockbox or a key or whatever. I often will never I'll never show the property. I don't meet the buyer. I don't go to the inspection. I don't go to the I don't do anything. But that's all because I have built a team in the background that is giving such high service and so many touch points along the way that they don't even care if they ever see me again. That's fine. And I don't want to see them either. I'm sure they're lovely, but I don't care.
So let's talk about this then. A follow-up question from the group is, a lot of people's lead sources for the last, let's just call it 2 years, has been open houses. Have either of you guys had success as it relates to hosting virtual open houses or video kind of tours?
Sarah, have you?
I don't do any. Sorry.
It's all right. No, it's an honest answer. I'd rather have an honest answer.
I wish
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. Emily, you're the same answer?
I don't, yeah, no, I just am not interested. And we tried it a couple times and just didn't, it's fine, but no.
Yeah. All right, cool. So then let me kind of bridging the gap then between leads and listings, and then also coming from you guys are very different, but similar in the sense that like service is very much the forefront of what you guys want to do, knowing both of your backgrounds.
Yeah.
Is like, the question I'd pose to you is like, at the end of your process, how do you know your clients have had like the ultimate service experience with you guys, right? And that you know that you feel that you provided a phenomenal transaction. Like, what does that look like for you guys?
Well, I think the easy answer is, oh, if they send us a referral, except that's not true because we know that there's a certain percentage of the population that's just never going to refer you, whether they love you or not. And we know that some people feel neutral about you and refer you. So that's not really a good measure, I don't think. I mean, I don't really care, Charlie. I care that I just know that we did a good job. I also have met enough other agents to know that we did a good job. Like I'm 100% sure of it. So that just comes from like the experience that I have and that my team has. Whether they show me that they're happy or not, I know for sure 100% that they got good service, they got a good quality attorney, they got a good quality lender, they got a good quality transaction manager. Like I know that because I've met everybody else.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Sarah?
And I'll be the opposite. For me, like I'm always checking in with my clients during the transaction. just getting a pulse on things. So one thing I can tell when they've had a really good experience is when they already start referring to me during the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get them when they're like really happy and excited and talking about things, and everybody's going to talk about it to their friends and family when they're buying houses or doing real estate. So for me, it's, I should always have like wow moments in the transaction where the client literally stops and says like, wow, that was like so awesome that you did that. And in turn, I see that through text, emails, calls, like, can I fill out a review on you? Can I get you connected with this person? So they reach out to me about that kind of stuff versus me reaching out and saying like, can you do a review for me? Or do you know anybody else who wants to sell? Like I get them coming to me.
Yeah.
Total different.
Well, but this is like, so what most people, or you guys may not feel this or see this, but the best part about a conversation like this is to show people there's not a right way to do this business successfully.
Right.
And there's not a wrong way to do this business successfully.
Right.
And like Emily's commentary of like, well, she doesn't really care. It's just a machine, because she's systems. Put it this way. If you didn't notice, she's super type A, right?
No.
Sarah is more on the other aspect of what fills her up, right, is the aspect of the affirmations within the process, and that she knows her process through affirmations is being delivered at a high level, right? And both are great. It just, that's what works for Emily and that's what works for Sarah, right? All right, so I'm just going to kind of open it up to the group here for now, based on Peter, Jackie, Laura, Paula, Sharon, Elissa Burkhoff. Anybody have questions for these guys?
I don't have a question, but it really helps to listen to two people that operate in such a different way, because being new, I feel like a sponge that has 90% water in it, and all this information's coming at me, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how much more I can fit in my brain. And so I've really kind of thought to myself, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. And I'm just trying to take little pieces from everybody and trying not to feel like I have to do it all right now or be exactly like somebody else who's showing a lot of success. So managing my internal desire to get completely up to speed and find this process, I'm just chipping away and being okay with that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Totally. Think of it like a la carte, right? I think one of the coolest things about KW is just simply the scale aspect. And scale is just diversity of thought. And when we can bring diversity of thought so that you can apply it, Laura, in a different way than, like, let's just say Peter may apply it or I may apply it, ultimately how you refine it is what ultimately will become your way of doing it, right? And that the more diversity of thought that we provide you in different ways of thinking is what will ultimately help you define your success, like long-term, in terms of your processes, your systems, your database. Cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thoughts, questions?
I'll add a little bit to that because as I'm listening to Sarah, I'm like, oh my God, I need to be more like Sarah. But luckily for me, I have an amazing business partner who's very much like Sarah. So if you are finding yourself in like being more like her or more, you know, you're this way or you're that way, like you might think about surrounding yourself with people who are not like you. And our tendency is to surround ourselves with people who are like us. And I would encourage you guys to find people who are just wildly different and, you know, have different expectations, visions, whatever, like different skill sets, and can kind of push you to stretch what your comfort zone is, because I would not be as successful as I am if my business partner wasn't very much like Sarah. I mean, he is like, let's go to lunch with everybody. Let's always have drinks with everybody. Let's be social. Let's remember people's names and their birthdays and their parents' names and their dog and whatever. And I'm like, who are these people? But I run like the tight ship behind the scenes. I'm like holding him accountable. And he's like, oh, why are you always holding me accountable? But it's like this perfect marriage. It's not a marriage, a perfect partnership of different skill sets that really equal. Like we always say, 1 + 1 = 3. And so if you're like, you know, leaning one direction, I would find those people who are different.
Yeah. Let me, Sarah, that's a good follow-up question just for you. Like, who and I know your brother is a huge influence and your father is a huge influence in your life and your business, but like, who are some of those accountability partners for you as an individual agent? Like, who do you lean on for that diversity of thought or accountability?
Like for professional, I have a couple different like coaches, you know, that I go to because I think it's important to be well-rounded in all areas versus before where it was just professional and then I was lacking on like the emotional and like mental, just mental well-being because I wasn't taking care of myself. So as far as like professional, I always ask my brother advice and stuff like that. Just about, he's more probably like on Emily's side. So when she's saying that she has somebody who's more like me, I think it's very important to hire to your weaknesses once you get to that point. So I know what I'm not good at, but I also know what I'm good at. And then I surround myself with support now who, where those people can fill in where I just don't have those skills. And no matter how hard I work, I never will. It's just not something I'm good at.
Yeah. And let's just quick personal plug. Tell us a little bit about your brother, because I think he's a super fascinating person that I think there's some people who would benefit from his message and what he does.
Yeah, he's very, he's just very inspiring. He used to be a pastor and he transitioned probably about 10 years ago to go into more business. So he runs probably 7 different 7-figure businesses, but he's an entrepreneur and does a lot of coaching, developing, and he basically now helps authors write books. So he just, he's really good at developing systems.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw this in the chat, but you can Google him to find his stuff. His name's Oberbrunner. Good dude, great content, and just looks at business very holistically, both personally and professionally, to help develop people. So I just put it in the chat. It's Carey with a K. It's a hard carry.
He's got a conference too every year that he does out in Ohio where thousands of people go, but they can't do it this year. So it's going to be virtual. So like, that's something that I'm doing, this year, because he's got some great, really high level mentors and his coaches basically coming to do the virtual conference this year.
Very cool. Awesome. Guys, it is noon and I want to protect everybody's time. And I know we never get to the leverage piece, but leverage is an easy topic to talk about. And I thought it was really important I wanted to talk about business development and lead generation with these guys because they're so good at it, which is why I spent the most of the time there. But thank you to Sarah and Emily for giving of your time and talent to this group, and be on the lookout for the video to be posted to YouTube later today.
Thanks guys for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily.
Emily and Sarah, thank you very much for sharing. Charlie,
Thank
thanks for setting us up.